Section 10 of The Valley of the Moon by Jack London. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Book 1, Chapter 10. I don't know horses, Saxon said. I've never been on one's back, and the only ones I've tried to drive were single and lame and almost falling down, or something. But I'm not afraid of horses. I just love them. I was born loving them, I guess. Billy threw an admiring, appreciative glance at her. That's the stuff. That's what I like in a woman, grit. Some of the girls I've had out, well, take it from me, they make me sick. Oh, I'm hep to them. Nervous and trembly and screechy and wobbly. I reckon they come out on my account and not for the ponies. But me for the brave kid that likes the ponies. You're the real good, Saxon. Honest to God, you are. Why, I can talk like a streak with you. The rest of 'em make me sick. I'm like a clam. They don't know nothing, and they're that scared all the time. Well, I guess you get me. You have to be born to love horses, maybe, she answered. Maybe it's because I always think of my father on his roan war horse that makes me love horses, but anyway, I do. When I was a little girl, I was drawing horses all the time. My mother always encouraged me. I've a scrapbook mostly filled with horses I drew when I was little. Do you know, Billy, sometimes I dream I actually own a horse, all my own, and lots of times I dream I'm on a horse's back or driving him. I'll let you drive 'em after a while, when they've worked their edge off. They're pulling now. There. Put your hands in front of mine. Take hold tight. Feel that? Sure you feel it. And you ain't feeling it all by a long shot. I don't dast slack, you being such a lightweight. Her eyes sparkled as she felt the apportioned pull of the mouths of the beautiful living things, and he, looking at her, sparkled with her in her delight. What's the good of a woman if she can't keep up with a man? He broke out enthusiastically. People that like the same things always get along best together, she answered, with a triteness that concealed the joy that was hers at being so spontaneously in touch with him. Why, Saxon, I fought battles, good ones, frazzling my silk away to beat the band before whiskey-soaked smoking audiences of rotten fight fans that just made me sick clean through, and them, they couldn't take just one stiff jolt or hook to the jaw or stomach, a-cheering me and yelling for blood, mind you, and them without the blood of a shrimp in their bodies. Why, honest now, I'd sooner fight before an audience of one, you for instance, or anybody I liked. It'd do me proud, but them sickening, sap-headed stiffs with the grit of rabbits and the silk of mangy kyes a-cheered me. Can you blame me for quitting the dirty game? Why, I'd sooner fight before broken-down old plugs of work-horses that's candidate for chicken meat than before them rotten bunches of stiffs with nothing thicker'n water in their veins, and Contra Costa water at that, when the rains is heavy on the hills. I didn't know prize fighting was like that, she faltered, as she released her hold on the lines and sank back again beside him. It ain't the fightin', it's the fight crowds, he defended with instant jealousy. Of course, fightin' hurts a young fella because it frazzles the silk out of him and all that, but it's the low-lifers in the audience that gets me. Why, the good things they say to me, the praise in that is insulting. Do you get me? It makes me cheap. Think of it, booze-guzzling stiffs that'd be afraid to mix it with a sick cat, not fit to hold the coat of any decent man. Think of them a-standing up on their hind legs and yelling and cheering, me. Ha ha, what do you think of that? Ain't he a rogue? A big bulldog, sliding obliquely and silently across the street, unconcerned with the team he was avoiding, had passed so close that Prince, baring his teeth like a stallion, plunged his head down against reins and check in an effort to seize the dog. Now he's some fighter, that Prince, and he's natural. He didn't make that reach just for some low-lifer to yell him on. He just done it out of pure cussedness and himself. That's clean, that's right, because it's natural. But them fight fans, honest to God, Saxon. And Saxon, glimpsing him sideways as he watched the horses and their way on the Sunday morning streets, checking them back suddenly and swerving to avoid two boys coasting across the street on a toy wagon, saw in him deeps and intensities, all the magic connotations of temperament, the glimmer and hint of rages profound, bleakness as cold and far as the stars, savagery as keen as a wolf's and clean as a stallion's, wrath as implacable as a destroying angel's, and youth that was fire and life beyond time and place. She was awed and fascinated with the hunger of woman, bridging the vastness to him, daring to love him with arms and breasts that ached to him, murmuring to herself and through all the halls of her soul, "You dear, you dear." Honest to God, Saxon, he took up the broken thread, they's times when I've hated them, when I wanted to jump over the ropes and wade into them, knock down and drag out, and show 'em what fightin' was. Take that night with Billy Murphy. Billy Murphy, if you only knew him, my friend, as clean and game a boy as ever jumped inside the ropes to take the decision. Him. We went to the Durant School together. We grew up chums. His fight was my fight. My trouble was his trouble. We both took to the fighting game. They matched us. Not the first time. Twice we fought draws. Once the decision was his. Once it was mine. The fifth fight of two lovin' men that just loved each other. He's 3 years older'n me. He's a wife and 2 or 3 kids, and I know them, too. And he's my friend, get it? I'm 10 pounds heavier, but with heavy weights, that's all right. He can't time and distance as good as me, and I can keep set better, too. But he's cleverer and quicker. I never was quick like him. We both can take punishment, and we're both two-handed, a wallop in all our fists. I know the kick of his, and he knows my kick, and we're both real respectful. And we're even matched, 2 draws and a decision to each. Honest, I ain't kind of a hunch who's going to win. We're that even. Now the fight. You ain't squeamish, are you? No, no, she cried. I just love to hear. You are so wonderful. He took the praise with a clear, unwavering look, and without hint of acknowledgment. We go along 6 rounds, 7 rounds, 8 rounds, and honors even. I've been timing his rushes and straight leftin' him and meeting his duck with a wicked little right uppercut. And he's shaken me on the jaw and walloped my ears till my head's all singin' and buzzin'. And everything lovely with both of us, with a noise like a draw decision in sight. 20 rounds is the distance, you know. And then his bad luck comes. We're just mixing into a clinch that ain't arrived yet, when he shoots a short hook to my head, his left, and a real haymaker if it reaches my jaw. I make a forward duck, but not quick enough, and he lands bingo on the side of my head. Honest to God, Saxon, it's that heavy I see some stars. But it don't hurt, and it ain't serious, that high up, where the bone's thick. And right there he finishes himself, for his bad thumb, which I've known since he first got it as a kid fightin' in the sandlot at Watts Track. He smashes that thumb right there on my hard head, back into the socket with an out twist, and all the old cords that never got strong gets theirs again. I didn't mean it. A dirty trick, fair in the game, though, to make a guy smash his hand on your head, but not between friends. I couldn't have done that to Bill Murphy for $1,000,000. It was an accident, just because I was slow. because I was born slow. The hurt of it. Honest, Saxon, you don't know what hurt is till you've got an old hurt like that hurt again. What can Bill Murphy do but slow down? He's got to. He ain't fighting two-handed any more. He knows it. I know it. The referee knows it, but nobody else. He goes on a movin' that left of his like it's all right, but it ain't. It's hurtin' him like a knife dug into him. He don't dast strike a real blow with that left of his. But it hurts anyway. Just to move it or not move it hurts. And every little dab feint that I'm too wise to guard, knowing there's no weight behind, why, them little dab touches on that poor thumb goes right to the heart of him. And hurts worse than 1,000 boils or 1,000 knockouts. Just hurts all over again, and worse each time and touch. Now suppose he and me was a boxing for fun out in the backyard, and he hurts his thumb that way. Why, we'd have the gloves off in a jiffy, and I'd be putting cold compresses on that poor thumb of his and bandaging it that tight to keep the inflammation down. But no, this is a fight for fight fans that's paid their admission for blood, and blood they're going to get. They ain't men, they're wolves. He has to go easy now, and I ain't forcing him none. I'm all shot to pieces. I don't know what to do. So I slow down, and the fans get hep to it. Why don't you fight? They begin to yell. Fake, fake. Why don't you kiss 'em? Lovin' cups for yours, Bill Roberts, and that sort of bunk. Fight, says the referee to me, low and savage. Fight, or I'll disqualify you. You, Bill, I mean you. And this to me, with a touch on the shoulder, so there's no mistaking. It ain't pretty, it ain't right. Do you know what we was fighting for? $100. Think of it. And the game is we got to do our best to put our man down for the count because of the fans has bet on us. Sweet, ain't it? Well, that's my last fight. It finishes me deado. Never again for yours truly. Quit, I says to Billy Murphy in a clinch. For the love of God, Bill, quit. And he says back in a whisper, I can't, Bill, you know that. And then the referee drags us apart, and a lot of the fans begin to hoot and boo. Now kick in, damn you, Bill Roberts, and finish him, the referee says to me. And I tell him to go to hell as Bill and me flop into the next clinch, not hittin', and Bill touches his thumb again, and I see the pain shoot across his face. Game, that good boy's the limit. And to look into the eyes of a brave man that's sick with pain and love 'em, and see love in them eyes of his, and then have to go on giving 'em pain, call that sport? I can't see it. But the crowd's got its money on us. We don't count. We've sold ourselves for $100, and we gotta deliver the goods. Let me tell you, Saxon, honest to God, that was one of the times I wanted to go through the ropes and drop them fans a yellin' for blood and show 'em what blood is. For God's sakes, finish me, Bill, Bill says to me in the clinch. Put her over and I'll fall for it, but I can't lay down. Do you want to know? I cry there, right in the ring in that clinch. The weeps for me. I can't do it, Bill, I whisper back, hanging on to him like a brother, and the referee ragging and dragging at us to get us apart, and all the wolves in the house snarling. You got 'em, the audience is yelling. Go in and finish 'em. The hay for him, Bill. Put her across the jaw and see him fall. You've got to, Bill, or you're a dog, Bill says, looking love at me in his eyes as the referee's grip untangles us clear. And them wolves of fans yelling, fake, 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 like that, and keeping it up. Well, I done it. There's only that way out. I done it. By God, I done it. I had to. I feint for him, draw his left, duck to the right past it, taking it across my shoulder, and come up with my right to his jaw. And he knows the trick. He's hep. He's beaten me to it and blocked it with his shoulder 1,000 times. But this time he don't. He keeps himself wide open on purpose. Blim! It lands. He's dead in the air, and he goes down sideways, striking his face first on the rosin canvas, and then laying dead, his head twisted under him till you'd a thought his neck was broke. Me, I did that for $100 and a bunch of stiffs I'd be ashamed to wipe my feet on. And then I pick Bill up in my arms and carry him to his corner and help bring him around. Well, they ain't no kick comin'. They pay their money and they get their blood and a knockout and a better man than them that I love layin' there dead to the world with a skinned face on the mat. For a moment he was still, gazing straight before him at the horses, his face hard and angry. He sighed, looked at Saxon, and smiled. And I quit the game right there, and Billy Murphy laughs at me for it. He still follows it, a sideline, you know, because he works at a good trade. But once in a while, when the house needs paintin', or the doctor bills are up, or his oldest kid wants a bicycle, he jumps out and makes $50 or $100 before some of the clubs. I want you to meet him when it comes handy. He's some boy, I'm tellin' you, but it did make me sick that night. Again the harshness and anger were in his face, and Saxon amazed herself by doing unconsciously what women higher in social scale have done with deliberate sincerity. Her hand went out impulsively to his holding the lines, resting on top of it for a moment with quick, firm pressure. Her reward was a smile from lips and eyes as his face turned toward her. "Gee," he exclaimed, "I never talk a streak like this to anybody. I just hold my hush and keep my thinks to myself. But somehow, I guess it's funny, I kind of have a feeling I want to make good with you, and that's why I'm telling you my thinks. Anybody can dance." The way led uptown past the City Hall and the 14th Street skyscrapers, and out Broadway to Mountain View. Turning to the right at the cemetery, they climbed the Piedmont Heights to Blair Park and plunged into the green coolness of Jack Hayes Canyon. Saxon could not suppress her surprise and joy at the quickness with which they covered the ground. "They are beautiful," she said. "I never dreamed I'd ever ride behind horses like them. I'm afraid I'll wake up now and find it's a dream. You know, I dream horses all the time. I'd give anything to own one sometime." "It's funny, ain't it?" Billy answered. "I like horses that way. The boss says I'm a waz at horses. And I know he's a dub. He doesn't know the first thing, and yet he owns 200 big, heavy drafts beside this light driving pair, and I don't own one." "Yet God makes the horses," Saxon said. "It's a sure thing the boss don't. Then how does he have so many? 200 of 'em, I'm tellin' you. He thinks he likes horses. Honest to God, Saxon, he don't like all his horses as much as I like the last hair on the last tail of the scrubbiest of the bunch. Yet they're his. Wouldn't it jar you?" "Wouldn't it?" Saxon laughed appreciatively. "I just love fancy shirtwaists, and I spend my life ironing some of the beautifulest I've ever seen. It's funny, and it isn't fair." Billy gritted his teeth in another of his rages. "And the way some of them women get their shirtwaists, it makes me sick thinking of you ironing 'em. You know what I mean, Saxon. There ain't no use wasting words over it. You know, I know, everybody knows. And it's a hell of a world if men and women sometimes can't talk to each other about such things." His manner was almost apologetic, yet it was defiantly and assertively right. "I never talk this way to other girls. They'd think I'm working up to designs on 'em. They make me sick the way they're always looking for them designs. But you're different. I can talk to you that way. I know I've got to. It's the square thing. You're like Billy Murphy or any other man a man can talk to." She sighed with a great happiness and looked at him with unconscious, love-shining eyes. "It's the same way with me," she said. "The fellas I've run with I've never dared let talk about such things, because I knew they'd take advantage of it. Why, all the time with them I've a feeling that we're cheating and lying to each other, playing a game like at a masquerade ball." She paused for a moment, hesitant and debating, and then went on in a queer, low voice. "I haven't been asleep. I've seen and heard. I've had my chances. When I was that tired of the laundry, I'd have done almost anything. I could have got those fancy shirtwaists and all the rest, and maybe a horse to ride. There was a bank cashier, married too, if you please. He talked to me straight out. I didn't count. You know, I wasn't a girl with a girl's feelings or anything. I was nobody. It was just like business talk. I learned about men from him. He told me what he'd do. Her voice died away in sadness, and in the silence she could hear Billy grit his teeth. "You can't tell me," he cried. "I know. It's a dirty world, an unfair, lousy world. I can't make it out. There's no squareness in it. Women, with the best that's in 'em, bought and sold like horses. I don't understand women that way. I don't understand men that way. I can't see how a man gets anything but cheated when he buys such things. It's funny, ain't it? Take my boss and his horses. He owns women, too. He might a owned you just because he's got the price. And Saxon, you was made for fancy shirtwaists and all that, but honest to God, I can't see you paying for 'em that way. It'd be a crime." He broke off abruptly and reined in the horses. Around a sharp turn, speeding down the grade upon them, had appeared an automobile. With slamming of brakes it was brought to a stop, while the faces of the occupants took new lease of the interest of life and stared at the young man and woman in the light rig that barred the way. Billy held up his hand. "Take the outside, sport," he said to the chauffeur. "Nothing doing, kiddo," came the answer, as the chauffeur measured with hard, wide eyes the crumbling edge of the road and the downfall of the outside bank. "Then we camp," Billy announced cheerfully. "I know the rules of the road. These animals ain't automobile broke altogether, and if you think I'm going to have 'em shy off the grade, you've got another guess coming." A confusion of injured protestations arose from those that sat in the car. "You needn't be a road hog because you're a rube," said the chauffeur. "We ain't going to hurt your horses. Pull out so we can pass. If you don't..." "That'll do you, sport," was Billy's retort. "You can't talk that way to yours truly. I've got your number and your tag, my son. You're standing on your foot. Back up the grade and get off of it. Stop on the outside at the first passing place, and we'll pass you. You've got the juice. Throw on the reverse." After a nervous consultation, the chauffeur obeyed, and the car backed up the hill and out of sight around the turn. "Them cheapskates," Billy sneered to Saxon, "with a couple gallons of gasoline and the price of a machine, a thinking they own the roads your folks and my folks made." "Talking all night about it," came the chauffeur's voice from around the bend. "Get a move on. You can pass." "Get off your foot," Billy retorted contemptuously. "I'm a comin' when I'm ready to come, and if you ain't giving room enough, I'll go clean over you and your load of chicken meat." He slightly slackened the reins on the restless, head-tossing animals, and without need of a chirrup, they took the weight of the light vehicle and passed up the hill and apprehensively on the inside of the purring machine. "Where was we?" Billy queried, as the clear road showed in front. "Yep, take my boss. Why should he own 200 horses and women and the rest, and you and me own nothing?" "You own your silk, Billy," she said softly. and you yours, yet we sell it to 'em like it was cloth across the counter at so much a yard. I guess you're hep to what a few more years in the laundry'll do to you. Take me. I'm selling my silk slow every day I work. See that little finger?" He shifted the reins to one hand for a moment and held up the free hand for inspection. "I can't straighten it like the others, and it's growin'. I never put it out fightin'. The teamin's done it. That silk gone across the counter, that's all. Ever see an old 4-horse teamster's hands? They look like claws that are crippled and twisted." "Things weren't like that in the old days when our folks crossed the plains," she answered. "They might a got their fingers twisted, but they owned the best goin' in the way of horses and such. Sure, they worked for themselves. They twisted their fingers for themselves. But I'm twisting my fingers for my boss. Why, d'ye know, Saxon, his hands is soft as a woman's that never's done any work. Yet he owns the horses and the stables, and he never does a tap of work, and I manage to scratch my meal ticket on my clothes. It's got my goat the way things is run. And who runs 'em that way? That's what I want to know. Times is changed. Who changed 'em?" "God didn't." "You bet your life he didn't. And that's another thing that gets me. Who's God, anyway? If he's running things, and what good is he if he ain't? Then why does he let my boss and men like that cashier you mentioned, why does he let them own the horses and buy the women, the nice little girls that ought to be loving their own husbands, and having children they're not ashamed of, and just being happy according to their nature?" End of Section 10.